Thank you, Donald. Well, I have to say, I didn't think it would take very long for the US president to comment on Mrs. May's proposed deal. Why? Well, I'll tell you. 3 days after he was elected, I was in Trump Tower. Some of you may remember the photograph of me, him, the golden doors. And it was clear to me on that day that people around him, the campaign managers and some who've gone on to become cabinet ministers, were very excited about one thing. It was this: Brexit Britain and Trump's America, they felt would be able to sign an all-encompassing free trade deal, and to do so pretty damn quickly. Why did that matter? Well, this administration is very pro the UK. This administration believes in bilateral deals between individual countries, not negotiating as part of big supranational blocs. And the other reason was they wanted to show America, and particularly the liberal media, they weren't against free trade, provided it was with countries of equivalence where they weren't going to be undercut. So this was to them a very big deal. Furthermore, if you look at what Trump said to the United Nations a few months ago, I mean, if ever you want the doctrine of Trump, and you can love it or hate it, if you want the doctrine of Trump, see that United Nations speech where he talks about the need for the individual nation state to be supreme, not supranational bodies like the European Union or indeed the United Nations. And of course, he sees two things. Firstly, he sees it's going to be very difficult, in his opinion, to do a trade deal between the US and the UK because of Theresa May's deal. And secondly, he wants Brexit to work because he's against the globalist project. Now, I know that he believes in this. I know that his administration believe in this. And I have to say, I didn't think he'd leave it too long before he said something. Well, last night, he was asked what he thought about the deal and what it meant for a UK-US trade deal. Here he was.
Sounds like a great deal for the EU, and I think we have to do this. I think we have to take a look at seriously whether or not the UK is allowed to trade, because, right now, if you look at the deal, they may not be able to trade with us, and that wouldn't be a good thing. I don't think they meant that. I don't think that the Prime Minister meant that, and hopefully she'll be able to do something about that. But right now, as the deal stands, they may not be able to trade with the U.S., and I don't think they want that at all. That would be a very big negative for the deal.
Well, I think President Trump wants the deal to fail, don't you? Pretty clear what he said, what he means. He thinks it's bad news for the US, for the UK. He's not happy with it. Now, it's very interesting that when Obama intervened in the referendum, a lot of people thought that was a good constructive thing. Of course, now it's Donald Trump. Many think he's interfering. But given the precedent set by Obama, it's perfectly fair and reasonable, I think, for him to comment. So he's pretty clear about this. Unless this deal changes, there are no prospects of a US-UK trade deal, something that regular listeners to this show might just have heard before. Here was the Prime Minister, who, by the way, is now on her tour, her whistle-stop tour of the country. She popped into Wales this morning, Northern Ireland this afternoon, and she was, of course, asked about this repeatedly. Here was the Prime Minister in Wales responding to President Trump's comments.
What the political declaration makes clear is we will have an independent trade policy. We will be able to strike trade deals around the rest of the world. We're talking, we have a working group that is working with the United States, looking at exactly this issue, but also we're talking with others around the rest of the world about the possibility of trade deals there as well. So, for example, with a number of countries that I met at the summit with Asian countries in Brussels a few weeks ago, talking about a real enthusiasm for trade deals with the UK. We will have that ability outside the European Union to make those decisions on trade deals for ourselves. It will no longer be a decision being taken by Brussels. We will have control of that, and we will strike trade deals that will enhance our prosperity, enhance our economy, and bring jobs to the UK.
Well, I can tell you what the political declaration makes clear is that nothing is clear. That absolutely nothing is guaranteed whatsoever, and unless we can overcome problems like the Northern Irish backstop, we may find ourselves actually trapped inside a customs union for an indefinite period of time, because we're not allowed to leave it and be free to take back control of our own tariff policy unless the European Union agree to it. So Theresa May comes out with these optimistic statements, but it won't be for us as a sovereign country to decide, because effectively what her deal does, it turns us into the status of a colony. They are my opinions. And let me tell you this, it isn't just the US president who is quizzical and critical about this deal on the basis that it makes trade deals difficult. I was at the British Curry Awards last night, and some very important, powerful Anglo-Indian, Anglo-subcontinent businessmen and women that were there, all expressing the same thing. What does this mean? How can we get closer with India? How can we get closer in terms of trade with this deal? So ever since Brexit, we've had countries all over the world knocking our front door down, looking to get closer trade relations, and Trump is speaking, in a sense, not just for America, but for many other countries in the world. Well, you've heard the President, you've heard Mrs. May, you've heard my opinion. Let me ask you, who do you think is right, President Trump or Theresa May? And if you think that Trump has just holed this deal below the waterline, if it wasn't already, then call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, no, trust Mrs. May, she will deliver this deal, in which case text to 84890. And tell me, who is the best person, do you think, to debate all of this with Theresa May? Is it Jeremy Corbyn on television on the 9th of December, competing against I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here's final? Or maybe Donald Trump would be a good person to debate against her. Or maybe somebody else you can think of would be good to debate against her. Let me know by tweeting using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, Facebookers who watch us live, you can comment too. I'm going to go up to Cheshire, to Northwich, to speak to David as a new caller to this show. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So what do you make of the President's intervention?
Well, what I would say before I make a comment on that, although I do agree that I think he's in the right, and he's justified in saying what he's saying. I, in a lifetime, have had an interest in politics, but only really sort of looked at the weekly or daily news every now and then. But I happened to be off work in May 2016, so I have followed the press quite diligently throughout the whole process to where we are now. I've got to say, as hopefully an intelligent person, I just sit around rolling around with laughter during most of the 2.5 years at the absolute melee and sort of chaotic state that the country's becoming. Anyway, the other day when Theresa May made her comments about the sort of conclusion of what she has done so far in order to achieve Brexit, I again just started rolling around the floor laughing. But then the next day, I felt a bit sad. I mean, what has the country come to? It's 2.5 years when we suddenly realise that we're not. The deal that is on the table looks to me to be much, much worse than staying in, and we've got to pay for the privilege. But this all looks like it's been planned from the start. Oh,
David, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the point is that the end game, well, if you look at the whole history of the 2.5 years, it's the same thing. And when I look at the BBC, there's no one that supports Brexit whatsoever. They're completely anti it. Most of the press is anti it. And the Trump phenomenon, I think, is just another problem for these people because they both achieve, or they want the same things, which is independent countries to trade independently and have their own identity, make their own laws, etc., which I'm sure you know all about. But my big concern is now, and this is another comment as well about Theresa May, I've always thought she was an extremely shrewd woman. How can she have got to this position where if she is shrewd,
David, if she is shrewd, then you're right. She has been planning this all along. And the more I learn, the more I get legal opinion. Even on the political declaration, the more I can see her plan was always to keep us as closely tied to Europe as possible, to deliver at best Brexit in name only. So, David, you're going with the President, are you?
Yeah, one further comment I'd make is I still think that this is very much an uphill battle, and I don't know if it ever will be won, because what the Brexiteers and the Trump supporters are sort of voting for is anti the way the establishment works. And they don't give an easy.
No, they don't, but change does come occasionally. David, thank you for that and your thoughts. Going to go to Tiss in Leicester. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. So, is it right for the American president to speak the way he has about Theresa May's deal?
I think if we're going to look at whose opinion we should take, we certainly should take the president's opinion, because one thing, there's some things we know about President Trump. Number one, we know he loves his country, and we also know he loves this country.
Yes.
He's very Anglophile in his outlook.
Mm-hmm.
He's a businessman. Since he's been president, he's done deals, he's renegotiated deals, and he's done very, very well. And also, if you want to look at the comparison, should we listen to Theresa May? Well, she's a pathological liar.
Oh, that's strong. That's strong stuff, isn't it?
Well, think about it, Nigel. How do you know if Theresa May is lying? If her lips are moving.
But Tess, she's said she's giving us back control of our laws, our money, our borders. I mean, what's not to like?
Nigel, Theresa May is probably the single most dishonest. I mean, we want to get this hashtag trending on Twitter. Lying Theresa May. She opens her mouth, she lies. We're going to take back control of our laws and borders. We're giving control to the EU with the backstop. We will not put the union at risk. She included.
Can I ask you, Tiss? Can I just ask you this? When she first became Prime Minister, and particularly after the Lancaster House speech, where she set out what appeared to me to be a great Brexit strategy, did you believe in her then?
Every single word. I bought it hook, line and sinker.
So you're really angry now?
And total sucker. And I think loads of people up and down this country, whether they were Conservative or they're Labour, really bought into that, believing she was going to deliver. I mean, she says, we're going to be able to strike trade deals. If you look at the point of trade negotiations, Nigel, is that you're able to be flexible on your access to your markets, your regulations, your tariffs, to be able to induce people to use the full power of the fifth largest economy in the world to get other countries to want to deal with us. When you shackle most of our economy to the EU, we're simply incapable.
Stuck inside a customs union, we can't negotiate those deals. And stuck inside a customs union, we can only leave if the EU agrees. I mean, it could be almost forever before we're able to do these things. Tiss, I thank you. Somebody out there must think the president's wrong to intervene. 03456060973. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here at LBC. It's now 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May has been speaking to business leaders, farmers and students in Wales and Northern Ireland today at the start of her 2-week campaign to get more support for her Brexit deal ahead of next month's crucial Commons vote. A 38-year-old man's been found guilty of murdering a debt collector after she'd called at his home in Essex. MPs have been questioning Facebook about fake news but left an empty chair for co-founder Mark Zuckerberg after he refused to appear. LBC weather. Heavy rain spreading northeastwards from Wales and the West Country through tonight. Dry and cloudy elsewhere, a low of 6 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the M25 is very slow in patches anti-clockwise from Chorleywood at 18 to Staines at 13 this evening, and then clockwise it's very slow in parts from the M1 at 21 to all the way round towards the M11 at junction 27. In the centre of town, London Bridge remains shut both ways due to the Black Cab demonstration. It means that Borough High Street is closed going north from Borough Tube Station, and Southwark Street is shut eastbound from Blackfriars Bridge. There are also delays around Victoria. Eccleston Street in the one-way system is closed from Buckingham Palace Road for repairs to a gas leak. Onto the trains, London Overground are warning of severe delays to and from Highbury and Islington. Great Western have 15-minute delays from Paddington to Slough, and there are minor delays on the Waterloo and City line.
This is LBC.
Looking for an easy way to find the best boiler, get it delivered and installed? Visit swaleheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
TfL and the Mayor of London are growing the capital's fleet of electric and hybrid buses. Their significantly lower emissions are helping to bring cleaner air to London. Great news for, well, basically anything that breathes when you think about it. For more information, search TfL Improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The first copper in your first home. Halifax know how good that feeling is. And if you're a first-time buyer, we'll do everything we can to help make it happen for you. Halifax, giving extra to first-time buyers.
I can't pretend to be a great celebrity.
Whatever the size of your business, now you can take card payments square and fair. Get next business day payments as standard, with no monthly fees and free point-of-sale software. Learn more at square.com/fair. Authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority for the provision of payment services. Terms and fees at square.com/fair.
That works the thingamabob.
Forget winter. Escape to Eilat. Book your November-December holiday to year-round sunny Red Sea and enjoy sensational beaches, amazing water sports and non-stop fun in the sun. Direct low-cost flight and a limited time offer from £42. Book your trip now at travelailat.com.
For the Black Friday lovers, the queue hoppers, the last-minute scramblers and sale shoppers, TalkTalk's Black Friday sale is now on. We're tearing over 30% off our award-winning fibre with no setup fee, no sneaky mid-contract price rises and our great connection guarantee. So you can leave any time in your first 30 days if you don't love your new fibre. But this deal won't last long, so switch to TalkTalk today and get over 30% off unlimited fibre. Now just £22.50 a month for 18 months with no setup fee. Hurry, offer ends 29th of November. Search TalkTalk Fibre. TalkTalk, fairer broadband for everyone. T's and C's apply.
Ah, the great British roast. When mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, Mrs May knew she had a very tough job in pushing through her deal, and of course we now know the vote will take place on the 11th of December. So she's got 2 weeks to go out there for the big sell, and it was all planned. Off to Wales this morning, Northern Ireland this afternoon. TV debates to come where it looks to have been pretty much agreed now that she will debate with Jeremy Corbyn on Sunday, December the 9th, although if they're going to compete with the final of I'm a Celebrity, I think they've got a little bit of a problem there, personally. But it all looked, from her perspective, at least there was a plan. And out comes Donald Trump. And no surprise to me, says this is a rotten deal, and it pretty much kills off the chance of a trade deal with the USA. I wonder whether he's holder below the waterline. I also wonder, folks, what is the point of a debate between Mrs May and Jeremy Corbyn? What is the point of a leaver in Jeremy Corbyn pretending he's a Remainer and a Remainer pretending she's a leaver in the shape of Mrs May? And if Mrs May is seen to be the Eurosceptic side of this argument, well, I'm sorry, but please get me out of here as well, because it just doesn't add up. Maybe what we really need is a proper debate to go on about the original reasons we voted to leave or voted to stay in the referendum, to remind ourselves where this whole thing started from. I think if we did that, we'd all reach the view that this deal is unrecognisable in absolutely every single way. And I've taken part in TV leaders' debates in the past, and they're difficult because often there are too many people on the platform. The best debate I've ever done was sponsored by LBC, was hosted by Nick Ferrari. It took place in 2014. It was myself v Nick Clegg. And whilst we both got very different views on the European Union and this country's role within it, at least you got two sincerely held opinions, both making arguments, allowing people to make up their minds. I'm not sure this debate between Corbyn and May will achieve anything. And of course, the point is, we can't vote on it anyway, because it's the MPs that are going to have this vote. So back to Trump, back to May's deal. Darren says, if this is such a good deal, why the hard sell for the next 2 weeks? The EU27 agreed it in 38 minutes. This tells us all we need to know. Any MP who votes for this deal is putting party before country. James says, one cannot argue with the indisputable fact that a broken clock is right twice a day. Trump is only saying what everyone else is saying after all. This plan is not good. In Monty Python terminology, it is a dead plan. Well, James, you may think that, and it looks like it'll be voted down on the 11th of December in the House of Commons. But then, of course, there is a European summit that takes place on the 13th and 14th of December, and she'll go. Maybe they'll give her some concessions. Maybe she gets the vote through second time. I don't know. It looks hard for her. Sean says it would help if other leaders of countries queuing up to trade with us spoke their opinions too. Sean, there are one or two Australian representatives who have been saying similar things over the course of the last week. I'm off to Hampstead to speak to Kieran. Kieran, good evening.
Good evening. I agree with what Donald Trump is saying, but I would also say that you're an intelligent man, Nigel, and you've said many times before, and I agree with you when you said that the EU are a belligerent bunch. They're not going to give us anything. They're not going to negotiate in our favour. Now, you knowing that surely can't be surprised when Theresa May comes back with a dead duck of a deal from them. It was inevitable. It was inevitable that whatever we tried to go to them to negotiate, they weren't going to give us anything. So that left us only two choices. Either we leave completely with no deal, or we stay in. And what is the better position for us? There's no point talking about, we'll get a deal with the EU and it'll all be
Kieran, okay, you asked that question. If you're going to honour the referendum result, there is only one answer, isn't there? You leave without any deal with, as you say, people who don't appear to really want to be fair with us.
But that wasn't what was asked in the referendum.
Oh, yes, it was. Oh, yes, it was. We were asked, do you want to leave? Do you want to stay? Do you want to leave? We didn't vote for any deal or any formula. We simply voted to leave. The government's job, given that they promised all of us they'd uphold the result of the referendum, the government's job is to carry that out.
But what was the basis of the campaigning at the referendum was that people, such as yourself and others on the Leave side, said that they're not going to give us a rubbish deal. They need us more than we need them. That's what you and various others said. That's what you said.
Well, Kieran, hang on. I did say that logic. I said economic logic suggests that, but, and I'm going to say it again, I coined the phrase, and I worked with a group of economists to do this. I coined a phrase, no deal is better than a bad deal. So I was pretty frank about that in the 2-week run-up to the referendum itself. The problem here, Kieran, isn't Brexit. The problem here is the sequencing and the negotiating strategy that's been pursued by the British government. It's been a disaster from day one.
I can agree with. I don't think Theresa May was fit for purpose. I mean, she was the only person that put her hand up for the job. Let's be frank. Nobody else, none of the the Leavers put their hands up for the job. Let's face it. You know, they jumped ship when it got difficult. But the point I was going to make, the final point I wanted to make was, in the position where we are now, if we leave without a deal, we don't have a trading arrangement with our biggest, let's say our biggest customer, the EU bloc. We don't have a trading arrangement with any of the countries apart from WHO rules. So we don't have anything set in stone at this point if we leave at this point. While we stay where we are right now, at least we have trading arrangements with the whole world via the EU. So
no, well, not really. I mean, the EU has negotiated trade deals with parts of the rest of the world, although it's done a pretty poor job compared to countries like Switzerland. Kieran, look, it should have been the easiest thing in the world to have a simple free trade deal with the European Union. I'm afraid we never actually asked for it. We are where we are. Let me ask you the question you asked me. What would you do?
Well, as I said to the researcher, I actually voted to leave. But given now that there's more information has been provided after these 2 years, which was never available to the public at the beginning of the vote, I would have changed my vote because I can see now that a no-deal situation and putting in a position where we have to negotiate all these terms with all these countries as a single country, no longer a block of a much bigger trading bloc like the EU, we would be at a disadvantage. I think that status quo is the better position right now.
Well, you are one of Mrs. May's successors. I have no doubt she'll be delighted to hear what you've got to say. Kieran, very quickly, South Korea, Singapore, Switzerland and Chile are all countries that are much, much smaller than us and have negotiated trade deals with groups far, far bigger, with countries far, far bigger around the world than anything the European Union has ever been able to do. And I don't believe you need to be in a big bloc to negotiate trade deals. I believe you need to be flexible and adaptable. But Kieran, I'm interested to hear your call. I'm somewhat down to hear your call, but this is what Mrs. May is doing to some people. Les is a new caller from Bexley Heath. Les, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Farage. Thank you for taking my call.
Not a
Love
bit.
the show.
Thank you.
The show.
Thank you. Well, welcome. Well, you've picked up the phone, Les, for the first time. You know, do you think was it reasonable for an American president to intervene the way that he has?
Absolutely, of course it is. As you mentioned, Obama did before.
Yep.
And I think this is the final now in Mrs. May's coffin. I think all the namby-pambies in Parliament sitting on the fence who can't make their minds up, it will just tip them over the fence, and this will never get through Parliament, which will be a good thing for the country, no matter what all the Remainers may think.
Well, yeah. But what happens then, Les?
Well, what happens then is instead of Jeremy Corbyn debating, you should debate with her.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. I would love to debate this deal with her.
Going head to head.
I'd love to do it. Yeah, well, of course, you know, we could easily, on Sunday the 9th, I've got my show in the morning from 10 till 12. If the Prime Minister wants to come on for a 2-hour debate, I'd be delighted to do it, Les. I've just got a funny feeling she might say no.
Oh, so have I, Nigel. I think she'll be running scared, mate. Running scared from you. I think you've got too many direct questions and you know far too much, probably a lot more than many of the MPs in Parliament, to debate this very, very important
I think
issue.
She's running scared of almost everybody that doesn't want, at the end of the day, to become a member of the House of Lords, which is kind of how it works, Les. Les, I thank you very much for your call. Robert in Glasgow says, if every country was queuing up to sign deals with us, we would bail out without a deal, believe me. The truth is there are none. Robert, they've been queuing up, you know, two dozen that I can think of, queuing up saying, we want to do deals with the UK. And of course they do. We're a big economy and we're a big importer of many, many goods. So yes, there are loads out there that want to do it. Mitch from Portsmouth says, you've got to take your hat off to her. She's played a blinder. Have you seen how confident she is now? Because she never thought she'd get as far as this. There'll be no tears for her in the end when she's sacked. Well, Mitch, when is she going to get sacked? I thought they'd sack her after the Chequers deal back in July. It seemed to me to be so awful that she had to go. But limp it like, she's still there. It's the one thing you've got to give her credit for. Stickability, if nothing else. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The Prime Minister's insisting her Brexit deal protects the vital interests of the whole of the UK, but she's faced continued calls to try to secure better terms with the EU on visits to South Wales and Northern Ireland today. A man's been found guilty of murdering a 49-year-old woman debt collector who called at his home in Essex. 38-year-old Jeffrey Hutton denied stabbing Tina Cantello when she went to speak to him in June about a payment. He'll be sentenced tomorrow. There are calls for ministers to take tougher action against Moscow as tensions escalate between Russia and Ukraine off the coast of Crimea. Border guards captured 24 sailors and fired on 3 Ukrainian vessels on Sunday, leading to a declaration of martial law by Kiev. LBC weather, heavy rain continuing to spread northeastwards from Wales and the west through tonight, drier and cloudier elsewhere, a low of 6 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Tactical contact seems to be working, but there are, of course, concerns.
I had 2 mopeds come up either side of me at a set of traffic lights. One of the passengers off the bike went to me with a sledgehammer over the back of my neck where my crash helmet was.
Suppose this Scorpion team gave chase, but they really seriously injured the man who hit you over the head. How would you feel towards him and that?
Do you know what? It's retribution in my eyes.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
It's Christmas dinner, and they're off. Nan's out the chair, racing for pigs in blankets. Dad makes a beeline for the spuds. Oh no, heartburn has struck. Dad's down, he's suffering. They're pinching things off his plate. Savage, hold on, he's got Gaviscon. And yes, he's trying the turkey. He's back in the game. Don't miss out on Christmas dinner. Nothing gets to work faster than the nation's favourite heartburn and indigestion brand. Gaviscon Double Action. Based on sales data, always read the label.
Sometimes you wish you could just magic things better. Like that time you tried to paint your walls a sparkly shade of unicorn. But you don't need to be a magician to fix things because Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So for decorators, plasterers or other professionals in their trade, just pop online, make your wish and they appear like magic.
TrustedTrader.com. Did you know you can get real-time updates to find out when your bus is due? There are loads of mobile apps available, powered by TfL data, or you can visit our website. All of which make it easier than ever to plan your journey. Running for the bus may soon be a thing of the past. Search TfL Improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Ah, the great British roast. When mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
Get together in your first home. Halifax know how good that feeling is. And if you're a first-time buyer, we'll do everything we can to help make it happen for you. Halifax, giving extra to first-time buyers.
Paul, Winston Wolfe. You're a landlord and I see you're in a pickle.
Yeah?
Your tenants can't pay the rent, and I'm here to tell you to call the smart guys at Direct Line. Their landlord insurance has rent guarantee of up to $250,000, and they pay until the issue is resolved.
That's a relief.
Now enjoy your pickle, Paul.
Landlord insurance with rent guarantee up to £250,000. Can your landlord insurance do that? Cover purchase as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Eviction notice must have been correctly served before you can claim. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased. Residential landlords only.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Trump intervened in the Brexit debate. He says Mrs May's deal's no good because it means there won't be a trade deal done between the US and the UK. And indeed, if Trump is right, that will apply to the rest of the world as well. Who's right, Trump or the ever-optimistic Theresa May? But before I get back to that, you will have noticed the news reports over the last 3 weeks about a succession of dinghies, often inflatables, crossing the English Channel, all coming out of the Dunkirk area, coming into around the Ramsgate, Dover area. What do we know? Well, we know there have been, really quite a flood of people. It's estimated that 100, some say 110 migrants have been picked up, claiming, in every case, we're told, to be Iranian and attempting an incredibly dangerous journey, and particularly at this time of the year with very changeable weather. And there was one big question that I wanted to find out. So, LBC today spoke to the Home Office and we asked the questions: how many suspected migrants have been rescued off the Kent coast so far this month? What is their country of origin? And how many are being detained as a result of this? And crucially, how many are being sent back? They were unable, the Home Office, to provide us with any of these figures and advised we tot them up ourselves. Well, I'm really sorry. This just isn't good enough. And where is the Home Secretary? Where is Sajid Javid? Because, folks, what we've got on our hands here is a mini Italy. Because if people realise that by taking these huge risks in small inflatable dinghies, they're going to get rescued once they cross the line by the RNLI or the Border Force, then be able to come into Britain. Of course, they'll have no passports. They'll say they're Iranian or whatever else, claim asylum, and be allowed to say, we are sending a green light to the trafficking gangs and for a lot more people to come. I promise you, I know the English Channel well. It will be very, very soon when one or two of those dinghies capsize and we find, rather than people coming aboard on British safety boats, there are dead bodies washing up on Kent's beaches. We need to stop this. We need to send a signal that anybody attempting illegally to come into the UK this way will not be granted refugee status. And at the moment, the Home Office will not even respond to LBC, and Sajid Javid has been absolutely silenced. Mark my words, this is going to become a much bigger crisis in the next few weeks. Back to Trump. Was he right to intervene? Was it reasonable of him to intervene? And was he right in what he said? Or do you still believe the Prime Minister? John is calling from Lawson. Good evening, John.
Yeah, hello there. Hi. Oh, he was clearly right in what he said, but I don't think he should intervene. I don't think Obama should have intervened. To be honest, I'm getting quite fed up with anybody else who's got, who's representing us, and that's who we want to hear from. I don't really want to hear too many opinions from people who don't represent us, because the Leave vote has not been represented at the heart of government, which is where we need it represented.
Well, I mean, that, John, I completely agree with, looking at the makeup of the cabinet particularly. But you say, I mean, don't you think that Obama set a precedent for this in a way? And isn't the key difference, John, that Obama actually flew to the UK to support the Remain campaign? All Trump did was he was on the lawn of the White House waiting to get into his helicopter, and he was asked a series of questions, of which this was just one.
Yeah, no. You of course you're right. There's no comparison with what Obama did, but I just know that the anti-Trump thing is to such an extent, not that I have any particular strong views, but just don't like to see foreign people get involved in our domestic, which is quite clearly our big problem. So yes, of course he's right. Theresa May's completely wrong.
But you don't. But you don't feel it's helpful, do you?
I don't think it's helpful. I think what happens there'll be too many people who don't like Donald Trump particularly. I sort of groaned when I heard the news this morning that he'd said something, because I thought, I'm just hoping and praying that the deal does get voted down, and that we find a way out of the cul-de-sac. And at some point, I don't know, I'm looking for some divine intervention, really, from the consciences of the Conservative Leave voters to actually get together and get rid of Theresa May.
Divine intervention, John.
Well, we do. We need something.
we need something. I agree with you.
If I had my way, Nigel, clearly what's been required from the word go is that the Leave vote's often criticised from never really enacting what it said or breaking promises, but it's never been at the heart of the government to do it.
No.
So quite clearly it needed a Leave leader, and I would like to see a cross-party cabinet that would try to explore what would be in the benefits.
That would have been
leaving.
so much better, John. And as it is, it's all gone back to party political lines, and yet we now face a moment where perhaps in the next few months we may even see fractures within our existing two big parties. John, I thank you very much indeed for your call. Carl says Trump's criticism is laughable but doesn't actually tell me why. Mark says very disappointing of Theresa May to tie us to the EU and forsake a bright future, wasting her time trying to convince the public this is a good deal. Sean says she twisted it again. She can do trade deals. It's down to the EU to set the tariff, so she can't do trade deals. If you're not in control of a tariff policy, you can't do trade deals. And I have to say that my fear with all of this is not only will we be prevented from making our own trade deals around the rest of the world, but what Theresa May's deal does, if it gets passed, it allows the EU to be vindictive towards us. They can pretty much do whatever they want to us. We'll be at their mercy. And then, boy, they will try and teach us a lesson and say to the rest of Europe, if you leave, this is what happens to you. We're off to New York to speak to John. John, it is good afternoon there, isn't it? Yes, hello.
That's right. Hi, Nigel. Thanks for having me on again.
Not a bit. So how have the American media responded to Trump's intervention?
It's interesting. I haven't really been following the media as of yet, but I think there's a state of disbelief over here as to the run-up of what we were signing up to. And I think Trump is bang on the money. I think he's saying it exactly how it is. And I think, this is really helpful. I think we needed a strong voice in the geopolitical stage to say it how it is, to highlight the absurdity of the deal that May's got. I think this can only cause a positive reaction.
Interesting.
So I'm interested to see which way it goes afterwards.
Interesting. Well, John, I can't speak for the president, and whatever conversations I may or may not have had with him over the last couple of years, I don't disclose, because he's kind of surrounded. Well, no, he's surrounded by people who want to make political and financial capital out of the fact they meet him and they know him. So I just don't say a word. But what I can tell you, is I have spoken to other members, senior members of his administration, who look on with incredulity at what they view as a once great country capitulating to foreign bureaucrats. They simply can't believe it. So, John, you think this intervention will be a force for good? Will it finally sink the deal for Theresa May?
I do hope so. Let's make Britain great again. I think this is a perfect chance to.
I'm getting the hats printed. I'm getting the hats printed, John, as you speak. Thank you very much indeed. Do call again. On Twitter, debating the deal with Jeremy Corbyn is just a diversion engineered by the mainstream media, who will use that opportunity to launder Mrs May's image. That will not change the EU deal. Waste of time. Yeah, I'm not overly convinced this debate between the two of them is actually going to achieve anything or any particular clarity at all. George from Notley says to me, having seen the EU's attitude towards Britain over the last 2 years, does anybody really believe if we stay in, their character will change? No, George, it's going to get worse. In a couple of minutes, I'll give you an example of how that could happen. I'm off to Nottingham to speak to James, a new caller to the show. Good evening, James.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So, was Trump right to get involved in this or not?
I'm afraid he wasn't really.
Okay.
I think basically, as adults, we should sort of maintain a standard where we look for consistency. So, you previously made a comment regarding Obama, like one of your callers did it also about getting involved, and you said that he should not get involved, and maybe that's a right perspective. And then you also commented about how Putin didn't get involved and maintain a silence. So whether Obama's in space or on our soil, or on the planet Pluto, or wherever he may be, Pluto isn't the planet, then he shouldn't get involved at all, and he should maintain a default silence. And therefore, we can say that Obama should have said nothing.
Well, James, Obama, the point I'm trying to make here is that I think there is a slight difference in that Obama flew to this country to do this. This was the big hit, the big interviews with the TV stations, the radio stations, etc. The difference here, James, so put yourself in Trump's position. You're on the lawn of the White House, the helicopter's whirring in the background, you've got a press pack firing questions at you, and you're asked this question: do you think with Mrs May's deal that you'll be able to get a US-UK trade deal, something he's publicly stated in the past he wanted? He had to answer it, kind of, didn't he?
I disagree, Nigel, on the basis that, if you remember the little fracas he had with the reporter, where the reporter, whether it was right or wrong, in stating, asking the president a number of questions, what he did was he stepped away and refused to answer. So if he can refuse to step away when faced with lots and lots of press, he can step away from the press on the field of the White House and get into a helicopter. He
stepped away because that was the fourth question that reporter had asked, and he was giving everybody one or two goes. All right, so you think better for the president diplomatically to have simply ducked the question?
Well, can I just say, it's not the president, because I don't want to make it just about Trump. Okay. I'm saying any international leader to let us sort out our mess.
Okay.
And then, once the mess has been sorted out, then to comment.
Okay. Fine. I get your point of view totally. Can I just ask you just one final question? Given that he has done this, and you think it would be better if he hadn't, do you think what he said will have any influence?
Well, I think any international leader is going to say it on influence, because we are looking to strike trade deals, whether you agree with Brexit or not. We're looking to try to strike trade deals, and so therefore, isn't it better again to let us sort out our mess?
No, James, very clear. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to tell you one more horror that is in the future political declaration that no one has yet talked about. But for now, you're listening to me here on LBC. It's 6:46 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May's been speaking to business leaders, farmers and students in Wales and Northern Ireland today at the start of her 2-week campaign to get more support for her Brexit deal ahead of next month's crucial Commons vote. A 38-year-old man's been found guilty of murdering a debt collector after she'd called at his home in Essex. Ticket reseller Viagogo has been told to change the way it does business after worries it was breaking consumer protection rules. LBC weather: heavy rain spreading northeastwards overnight, dry and cloudy in the south, a low of 6 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and on the M25 on the Surrey stretch, it's slow anti-clockwise between 10 at Wisley and Leatherhead at Junction 9. One lane is closed there because of flooding after the heavy downpours. In the centre of town, London Bridge is still shut both ways due to the Black Cab demonstration. Borough High Street is shut going north from Borough Tube Station, and Southwark Street is shut eastbound from Blackfriars Bridge. There are long delays around Victoria caused by a gas leak closing Eccleston Street at Buckingham Palace Road. Now, if you're heading out of town to the east on the A13, massive queues towards Movers Lane at Barking. It's because of the roadworks on River Road. It's struggling back through the Limehouse Link Tunnel and along the highway. And once you get past Movers Lane, it's queuing towards Alsett, where there's a broken down car closing one lane. It's heavy out of town on the A2 to an accident just after Gravesend. And on the trains, London Overground, a warning of severe delays to and from Highbury and Islington.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Children's Minister Nadine Zahawi joins me for a phone-in at 8, plus TV debates, Islamophobia in Britain and all the latest Brexit news.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Is Donald Trump a dangerous provocateur or a great entrepreneur? Does the Me Too movement empower women or undermine them? Does the country need a people's vote, or have we already had one? With independent opinions from the best British journalists, read a magazine that makes you think. The Spectator. Open for debate. Try a month free at spectator.co.uk. Credit card required. Future subscription costs apply unless cancelled 7 days before end of trial.
Finance for Business is the finance broker you can depend on. Their team of professionals can help you secure bridging finance, development finance, and commercial mortgages. Working with hundreds of lenders, they'll help you select the right solution for your project and stay from the start to the end and beyond. Finance for Business, because broking is the new banking. Visit award-winningfinance.com.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you earning between £1,000 and £1,600 per week? No? Well, you could be, with Greyhound Cars' 18% commission rate. As part of a pooling group of 45 minicab companies in London, we have high demand and are now offering 18% commission deals for new drivers. We allocate each job within 5 seconds to the nearest available driver, so you spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. Apply today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Block management? It's a doddle, isn't it? I mean, once you've got budget approval, all you need to do is your service charge invoices,
health and safety regulations paperwork, do the cleaning, the gardening, general maintenance, sort out site inspections, arrange contracts, insurance, emergency representation.
Yes, block management. Such a doddle.
Save time and money and cut down on the stress. For complete block management solutions, just call ABC Estates. ABC will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry.
For complete block management solutions, see abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Daddy!
When a child loses a toy, it can feel like the end of the world. So imagine how it feels for a child to lose their childhood. Right now, in the world's poorest communities, children are in danger of becoming enslaved as labourers, soldiers, and even brides. Sponsor a child with World Vision and you'll help a community keep its children safe. Find out more at worldvision.org.uk/childhood. Childhood is sacred. Help us protect it.
Forget winter. Escape to Alat. Book your November-December holiday to year-round sunny Red Sea and enjoy sensational beaches, amazing water sports and non-stop fun in the sun. Direct low-cost flight and a limited time offer from £42. Book your trip now at travelalat.com.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Even without Donald Trump's intervention, this deal is in real trouble. And it's funny, as the days go by, we learn more and more and more. State aid is the means by which government invests public money in projects, very much in conjunction with private companies too. And the Labour Party, under Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, is very much up for a Labour government getting involved much more actively with state aid projects. What has come to light today, as a result of a ruling in the European Court of Justice, is that Article 79, not of the withdrawal agreement, but of the political declaration for the future. Says our future relationship must ensure open and fair competition provisions to ensure this should cover state aid. Oh, and guess what? Any big spending decisions by the UK government on state aid in the future relationship, not just the transition period, will be decided by the European Court of Justice. So, Prime Minister, please tell me, how can you stand up in the House of Commons and tell us that the European Court of Justice will not have any say over this country in the future when it's absolutely clear today and backed up by a legal judgment that they will? And let me say this to the Labour Party. Your programme of state aid for a future Labour government is impossible as European Union members, but equally impossible under this deal. Another reason to oppose it, although I think, having listened to Jeremy Corbyn yesterday, there wasn't too much doubt about that. Anyway, Adam is a new caller from Basingstoke in Hampshire. Adam, good evening and welcome.
Hi there, Nigel. How are you?
I am fine. I'm just wondering, does Donald Trump have a positive influence on UK public opinion or not?
I think he's got, he's had the right to have an opinion being the President of the United States, but at the same time, I think we should be taking what he says with a pinch of salt, really.
All right.
He's been very well known in the past to kind of put America first in negotiations, so to think that we're going to get a fantastic deal from him, I think, is a bit naive, really.
Well, it is possible, Adam, that if you remove barriers, regulatory barriers, etc., that you can have a trade deal that actually mutually benefits both. That is entirely possible, isn't it?
But I don't think he sees mutually beneficial as being a positive for America. I think he sees only winning and losing. Negotiations isn't about getting something that works for both parties for him. It's about winning.
I think Monsieur Barnier was all about winning too, don't you? And I think it's game, set and match to him. But no, Adam, I do take your point. This president was elected on an America First policy. I absolutely understand that. And I believe that's the right thing. I think, that's what countries should do. But Adam, I do think there are times when, as I say, removing barriers can be good for both sides.
Yeah, I see that. And I see as well that Michel Barnier is on the best for his side because they hold much more cards than we do. They've got 500 million citizens and we have 50. That's, a big difference.
Well, you could argue, Adam, we didn't actually play our cards very well because, in any business negotiation, unless the other side thinks you're going to walk away, you're kind of on a bit of a losing wicket, and we never ever played the card. Adam, I take your point. Trump puts America first. Doesn't mean it won't be a good deal for us too, though. Addy is a new caller from Crystal Palace. Good evening to you.
Hello, Nigel. How are you going?
I am well. So, does Trump's intervention make a difference in your opinion?
Well, I don't really care what Trump says about this, but I'm not entirely clear what his comment is about. I mean, if you try and understand what he's trying to say, he says we cannot trade with the US, which is factually incorrect. I mean, we can trade with the US on WTO rules. Yes, there's no free trade agreement in place, and Donald Trump is probably flexing in anticipation of our negotiations with him. But I mean, it's just factually incorrect, and I'm not sure why.
Well, if you okay, What he meant was, and what everyone took it to mean, and literally, Addy, you're absolutely right, but what he meant was trade deal, wasn't it?
Well, yes, but he didn't say that, did he? It sounds like he almost comes up with things which make him seem incoherent. I mean, he says things like we cannot trade with them, which is just literally just factually incorrect. Why would you say that?
Okay, but everybody, everybody, including Theresa May, has taken it to mean trade deal, and on that, isn't he right?
Well, we cannot we can't negotiate terms of the trade deal. We cannot have a live trade deal during the transition period. We cannot just enter into an agreement during the transition period. But to say that we cannot negotiate the terms of it for something to come into effect after the end of the transition period is just not right.
The trouble is, Addy, when is transition going to end?
Yeah, you're right.
Because the end of 2020, and then Mrs. May requested it could be the end of 2021. Barney is now saying the end of 2022, and the lawyers say it could be forever because we can't get out of this unless the EU agrees.
Listen. I agree with you. I am not on the side of Theresa May on this deal. But what is the alternative? What are you suggesting? A no deal? Is that better?
Oh, is no deal better than this deal? You bet your bottom dollar it is. We'll be, and we'll have about £60 billion to play with as well.
Well, then how does that compare? So you've just told me WTO rules to trade with the US is not the best way to go about, but somehow WTO rules to trade with the EU is okay.
No. Because, Addy, I wanted for 25 years a simple free trade deal with the European Union. We haven't ever actually asked for it in these negotiations, and time is now running out, and I believe that a move to WTO, we'd very, very quickly get the right deal sorted out with the European Union thereafter. I really do. Addy, I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to very quickly go to Majid in Peterborough, a regular call. Majid, you've got a quick 40 seconds.
Nigel, she's pulled off the greatest con trick in British politics ever, this woman has. She strung us along like a load of kippers, promising us something and knowing all along that we weren't going to get nothing. I put this on a par of Judas selling out the Son of God, I tell you what, and I'm totally disgusted. We've got little tin pot countries now who can tell us what to do, who you know, this great nation of ours, what the hell's happened to it?
Well, that's what the Americans are saying, Majid, isn't it?
I can't believe it. So, you know, Lithuania and Luxembourg and Brussels, and they turn around and say, you know, we're not going to give you this deal, you can't do it, and we're going to have to really accept it. And nobody sees it. What the hell's going on?
We are going to be, Majid, at their mercy, and they're going to be very unpleasant to us because they'll want to make an example to us. They'll want to say to the Italians, look, if you leave, this is what happens to you. Majid, thank you very much indeed for your call. Well, I'm heading off very early tomorrow morning to go back to Brussels. I'll be there for a couple of days. There'll be a debate on Thursday morning with, you've guessed it, Mr. Barnier and Mr. Verhofstadt. It should be fun. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 from Brussels. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Well, I hope you're going to be nice to Mr. Barnier in that debate, Nigel.
I'll be nicer to him than he's been to us.
Well, there we go. It's not difficult, is it?